first speaker just now is Joeri Tijdink. Joeri is a principal investigator at the Amsterdam Medical Center, Amsterdam University Medical Center, I have to say, yeah. And I think he's quite well known in this field of open science and research integrity. He will talk about what the current initiatives are and the future directions in this field. And he just told me he's also a psychiatrist, which I found interesting to hear. Then we have Michiel de Boer after that. Michiel is an associate professor at Groningen University, has a background in movement sciences, but is now in epidemiology. And the third contribution will be from Andrea Kisch, who did her master's in Groningen and is currently pursuing her PhD at TU Eindhoven. I just learned that the deadline for her book is next week. So thank you for taking time to be with us today. Let me raise this microphone for Joeri. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is easier. I would like to start with a case. And you may close your eyes, you also keep your eyes open. And thank you for introducing me, by the way, Nick. So imagine you are an ambitious PhD candidate conducting groundbreaking research. Your supervisor is a well-esteemed professor with prestige internationally recognized and admired. And however, internally, that prestige is less important. He belittles you, expressing dissatisfaction with your progress and expecting positive results from you that you can publish in top-tier journals. You rarely see him because he's often away. If the results you produce are unsatisfactory to him, he will let you know, both in words and gestures, encouraging you to manipulate the data to make them appear more favorable. According to him, open science is a hoax, and pre-registration of your studies is forbidden. P-values below 0.05 are the holy grail. Once you suggested that a no-difference finding is also valuable and should be published, this became a shameful moment. For weeks, he made fun of you during group meetings. You feel tense, pressured, and insecure during these meetings. Your colleagues are also solely focusing on obtaining positive results, and you notice that you are not they're not afraid to cut corners. This creates fierce competition, and collaboration is instrumental. Since your contract is temporary, you fear that your professor will not extend it if you don't have a good publication record. Promotion and tenure criteria prioritize publication, citations, and grants, while research methods and rigor are undervalued. You feel overburdened and stressed and disappointed about research. You find honesty an important value, but feels that this competitive culture will help you from producing responsible research. Producing this type of knowledge doesn't feel right. Okay. Who closed their eyes? No one. Okay, maybe later. I think this works. Yeah. What are we going to discuss? So we started with the case. I will give an introduction to research culture, topics. We dive into topics that may entail research culture, what to do, what are the next steps, and we discuss maybe some ideas for a research agenda for a research culture. So the next slide is not working. That should have created a word cloud, but now I'm just asking you, what elements, what is, according to you, the most important element of research culture? What else? Transparency.
Honesty.
Honesty, I hear connected mindset. A collective mindset. Yeah.
Curiosity.
Curiosity also.
Collegiality. Collegiality.
Collegiality.
Care.
Care.
Well, taking care of each other, making sure we feel taken care of.
Yeah.
Human being is a professional.
Yeah. And you feel so No, you. Oh, safety. Yeah, safety. So I think this is very important because if we look at the definitions, this is all encompassing related to research.
Mr. Mike.
Yeah, I will go. Well, no, then I will join the stage. Well, I think. Yeah, thank you. So, if it's. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh no. Okay, so if we go to these definitions, right, on culture, on climate, on environment, I think, and this is what ChatGPT tells me about what are these differences and what is the connectedness and are they distinct? Then culture refers to the beliefs, customs, practices, values, and behaviors that define a group of people or society. That's related to culture. Then if we talk about climate, that refers to the prevailing attitudes, behaviors, and atmospheres within an organization or community. And it often is about the social and emotional weather, like workplace morale or societal tolerance. And environment, then, it refers to the physical surroundings or conditions, including natural or human-made elements that affect living organisms or communities. So I think this is what you see here, if we talk about research culture or research climate or research environment, that these different definitions do certainly have some overlap, but they also are very broad. So if we talk about research culture or climate, we can think of that this may encompass so many different behaviors. And if we dive a little deeper about research climate, this is one group that refers the research climate as the shared meaning organizational members attached to the events, policies, practices, and procedures they experience, and the behavior that they see rewarded, supported, and expected. Also a very broad definition that could include everything what you just mentioned in the live word cloud that we worked on. So, taking these definitions into account, we should ask ourselves, okay, how does this then relate to responsible research practice or to research integrity? And in the SOPS for I project where me and colleagues were working on creating policy or guidelines for research performing and research funding organizations, we included 6 different topics. I will come back to these 6 different topics later, but what most important is that they all these topics, they influence research practices. And I think that's important for this talk today, how research culture influences research practices. Then, if we dive deep, if we talk about policy, we should think of course, the Dutch Code. What does the Dutch Code say about research culture? In the 2018 code, right? So explore an open, safe, and inclusive research culture. That's how it's mentioned in the code. But if you dive deeper, we go to the ALIA code, for example, they also have one notion of a culture of research integrity, and that's research institutions and organizations promote awareness and ensure a prevailing culture of research integrity. So also one mention of research culture. And then the Danish code, it has a total of 10 different mentions of culture in their code. And they go a little bit further, that they require research leaders, even research leaders and supervisors, that they should receive specific research integrity teaching and training to support their mentoring roles in fostering a culture of research integrity, for example. So it is embedded in the codes, in the policy, in the national and European policy. But interestingly, if now the current Dutch code is being revised, and there was an evaluation committee that spoke with a lot of people, and I'm sure some of you also included in these talks with this specific committee, what was assessed. And what this advisory committee says, and that's very interesting. So the committee advises placing active promotion of a healthy research culture at the center. So in the revision process, they really want that the code should elaborate more on research culture, as they see how important it is to foster a responsible research environment. And they further say that confidential advisors can take up a greater role in enhancing the learning capacity of the institutions. Okay, so now we talked about definitions, and now we talked about codes, how they refer to research culture. I think it's important to then further think together today how research culture then may influence the behavior of researchers. And I really like this figure that was also built out of the work on SOPS4UI, and big thanks to Noemi and Karen for sharing this slide. I really find this super helpful to understand how this works. Because if you look at this is the researcher, and for conducting good research, you need safety. So that's bullying, for example, or harassment, or power imbalances. They do not disturb your work too much, that you feel safe. And someone already alluded to feeling safe, like social safety, important one. A second one is this, inclusion and diversity. So this sense of belonging, that you belong to a department. I think also very important if we talk about research culture and how this can influence you personally and influence the behaviors. The third one, competition and pressure. Of course, if you feel pressure and you have a lot of workload, this influences the research practice that you engage in. The fourth one is management and assessment. Well, we will talk about recognition and rewards, I'm sure, but this is really about what expectations does an institution have from you and the research that you do. The fifth is research career. Of course, you need job security. Security is very important if you know that you are at the right place at your department. And the sixth, education and skills. Of course, you need the skills to actually conduct good research. I think this slide really helps to further understand research culture and how it influences behavior. So then if we dive further into this, I'm sure some of you have seen this slide before, but I think it's important because this is about the risk factors of potential misconduct or questionable research practices. And here you also see that that culture plays a very important role. It's not only the individual, and we discussed the bad apples. It is the whole system and the whole culture that the apple is actually in. The tree, it's the tree, and it's the orchard. And you see here all different types of factors that influence research misbehavior in this regard, and thus is also influencing the practices from researchers. And I think culture and system are really connected here. Come back to that as well. So then further diving into this, into the role of research climate on research practices, wonderful work by Tamarinde, who will speak later today, about explaining the variance in perceived research misbehavior. And what she found is that responsible research climate and publication pressure relates to research misbehaviors and can be and research misbehavior can be explained by these two factors by quite some percentages. Super interesting to see this going on, and she will talk more about this survey later today. And the second one, which is work from my PhD, and there we see that publication pressure and emotional exhaustion are also associated with research misbehaviors. So, diving into this work pressure thing, or why do researchers feel overburdened if we talk about mental health? Just a small sidestep, which is it is important if we talk about research culture as well. If we question ourselves, why do we actually suffer as researchers, and are also very happy, by the way, but we also suffer sometimes, is all different factors. From studies that the Promovendi Network Netherlands did, this is in random order, but they highlighted several factors that are super important why PhD candidates feel overburdened. And if you look here, it's lack of supervision, publisher-perish culture, poor job opportunities, too many tasks, power relations, unhealthy work ethos and working hours. All these things, if you look at them, well, they are very much related to research culture. So it also influences us as researchers and influences our mental health. So to conclude, I think it's very important that we should accept that the definition of research culture is very broad and it can entail so many different practices. Yes, thank you. So, wait. So how should we then change a culture? And I think that is very interesting. In 2019, Brian Nosek wrote a blog post, and I'm sure most of you have seen this, and he described a pyramid of culture change, right? And although I don't think that it is a pyramid, but it's more cyclical, and that it's all connected with one another, I think it's very helpful to use this pyramid as how we can think of change. So this pyramid has five major factors, and I would like to highlight these five different aspects of culture change in order to give examples of initiatives. So first one is policy, of course, and there are numerous. One is the Dutch Code of Conduct of Research Integrity. I think being a revision, I think that's an important factor in policy initiatives. For example, in the Amsterdam UMC, we have a PhD quality guideline that helps PhD students how they should create a good research trajectory, a PhD trajectory. And with the SOPs for AI project, we have created research environment guidelines that touches upon the 6 topics that we discussed. Here you can see them. It's about culture building. It's about the responsible assessment criteria. It's about inclusion and diversity. So all kinds of things. And I definitely recommend you to have a look if you want to know more about this policy. Then the second part is incentive and responsibilities. I think we should anchor research culture more in the recognition and reward criteria, and that we create, support and incentivize culture guardians, that we really find leaders and individuals and even and also research integrity officers that they aspire a culture of research integrity. And that I think it's also important that we fund research on research culture to improve our knowledge, because I think it's still a mere avoir in terms of what we actually know about research culture and even what interventions are actually helpful. This third pillar that I would like to highlight is communities. I think communities are super important. And this, I think it's wonderful that we're here together. We are also a community, and having these yearly events is super important to see each other, to build a network, and to share knowledge and to share initiatives. And I think what we also can learn is from the other side of the North Sea. There they have a National Center of Research Culture led by the University of Warwick, and they organize yearly conferences on research culture specifically. Last September there was, I think it was the second or the third one, very important. They also created a network of research culture enablers and share best practices. I think that's also very important. This is about communities. The fourth one is the tools and practices. Of course, there are numerous tools and practices out there. And without diving too deep, I think these engagement activities or training and workshops that we have on research culture, peer support structures and systems, I think all very important in order to share initiatives and also share best practices. And the fifth one, I have to speed up a little bit, is the infrastructures, right? The support networks to create research culture champions at universities, for example. I mean, we can do so much more in order to emphasize research culture in general at universities, but also in a national level, and also, I think, on a departmental level. So, to summarize, I think we have 1 more minute, right? Yeah. Okay. To summarize, I think research culture encompasses a wide variety of topics. It's very, very broad. And this also means that there are all kinds of initiatives that are, well, they're wonderful initiatives, but they need to be tested in order to assess whether they are effective or efficient when they are implemented in institutions or at departments. I think there's also more attention needed for the less tangible aspects in academia, like research culture elements. And I think the department, and we didn't talk about too much here today, but I think if we talk about research culture, we really should talk about departments. Departments, this is where a culture is shaped. It's not at the individual, it's sometimes at the institutional level, it's definitely not at the national level. They have influence, but the department should get a central role in aspiring a responsible research culture. So, I think the research agenda is for something that we can discuss in the break. I think there's so many new things that we need to study and to specifically for intervention. If we want to improve research culture, we also need to know if they are efficient and if they are effective. And we should also not underestimate the role of academic leaders in fostering this this responsible research culture. So, I would like to end with a case, if that's okay. I would like to end with a case, because I think this case can really help us to further understand. So imagine, again, you can close your eyes. Imagine that you're an ambitious PhD candidate aspiring to conduct groundbreaking research. At this university, you are fortunate to work under the guidance of a top-tier professor, one of the world's leading experts in the field. This professor makes you feel recognized and valued. While hard work and publication remains important, research is conducted with rigor and open science practices are embraced. Negative results are also highly rewarded and studies are pre-registered to ensure transparency. Unlike the previous scenario, top journals are not considered the ultimate goal. The goal is to produce high-quality research. The professor actively engages in discussion about research, listening to everyone's input. Your research results are met with enthusiasm, and the professor not only treasures research finding, but also encourages you practices that enhance reproducibility and research integrity is considered a cornerstone in discussions. Furthermore, there's an emphasis on academic responsibilities beyond research, including teaching, team collaboration, and leadership. You feel acknowledged and valued, and you consider yourself a full member of the team. This research climate spurs you to engage in responsible practices safely. You even won the Reproducibility Prize at the national event that rewarded your thorough research method and reporting. This is your department, and you are confident that your contract will be renewed. Thank you very much.
We have time for 1 or 2 questions, so please take the floor.
Jos Hansen, Driehoek Research Report. I wonder a bit about your pyramid. I think the Egyptian people started to build first the bases and then went up to top. And in your approach, you are going from top to down. So, and that's perhaps thinking about it, we are in a certain research infrastructure already, market-driven. So if you want to change something, I don't think you have to start at the policy line, but perhaps we should do the tough work on bases.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think policy is really top down, but there are so many other factors. I think communities, for example, building communities as should be part of this, and communities really built within within a research ecosystem, and that's not something like policy. So I think a concerted effort is really about both top down and bottom up. I think they cannot go. It's impossible to do solely top down or to do solely bottom up. I think it's definitely both, and it should be both. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you again, and thank you very much for an insightful presentation. My name is Ruth Moore, and I'm from the Atlantic Technological University and former chair of the National Research Integrity Forum in Ireland, Community Practice. So research cultures, basically issues are facing many institutions, and it's usually time to do research well, but also time to make informed research decisions. So as you know, and you mentioned it in your presentation, time costs money. So there's a big emphasis on institutions to drive research culture and to be accountable for research culture. But as we mentioned earlier, it's very much a collaborative effort. How, as technological universities in Ireland, or how can universities across Europe try to impact research funders, but also make governments on all relevant parties accountable for research culture? We've seen here in the Netherlands, unfortunately, there's been a reduction in funding towards research. So what can we do to kind of lobby those stakeholders that have influence? Thanks, Joeri.
Yeah, I really think that it starts, well, fortunate, if we can prove more regularly and in a more solid, create a knowledge base that research culture really impacts so much, that it really is detrimental for researchers, poor research culture is detrimental for researchers, but that it's really affecting the quality of our work, because it is logical, but there are not so many studies done that specifically target research culture as one of those risk factors of poor, of bad quality research. And I think that's crucial in order to convince funders and also convince institutions to put more money for this endeavor. So that's one thing. But there again, this is also culture change. If we are with more in communities, if we are making more noise about this problem, and this also starts with policy on the other end. If it's in the code, if it's so central, and that's what this committee wants. If it's so central in the code, then it becomes more important, and it tickles down the road. So on the one hand, policy can do something there, and then the third one, and I discussed it briefly with Michiel, the next speaker, in the break. Until now, we didn't manage to make research culture studies or research culture research very sexy. So, like oncology is super sexy. Everyone wants to invest money in oncology research, and maybe not so many people want to invest money in research culture research. This is also something that we should work on. I'm not sure how we can make this more sexy, but I think that would be a wonderful discussion point during the break. More than happy to hear your thoughts. Yeah. And one final thing, of course, work is built on the collaboration of many wonderful colleagues, and I just want to acknowledge them. They do wonderful work, and I'm super happy that I collaborate with them. Thank you so much.